Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big Boss Show. It's a new show where we talk to somebody that may have not always been a big boss, but shares his or her perspective that we can learn from. Today, I'm joined with a very special guest, doing this in studio in Miami, Florida. We got coach, trainer, and speaker Dave Bricker.
Good morning, Davron. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a business storytelling expert. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach, and it all focuses on this world of business storytelling, which is essentially what to say and how to say it. We all have a message to share. We all want to convince people that we have something valuable to offer, and all too often we don't know how to do that because we don't have the training.
How did you get into that?
I think I've always been into communication, whether that's playing music, writing, any number of different things, and it all just came together. People would ask me what I did for a living. I'd have to say, how much time do you have? And it finally, storytelling, that's the umbrella. It's all about what to say and how to say it, and whatever medium you use to convey that message is really a different issue.
Got you. So, from what I understand, you traveled thousands of solo miles and crossed the Atlantic on a wooden boat. What inspired you to do that?
I got to a certain point, I met these wacky people who lived on sailboats, and by the time I graduated college, I had my own little $3,000 fixer-upper sailboat that I was living aboard. And when my friend offered to do the transatlantic trip, I said, let me think about it. Sure, let's go. I mean, I was in my 20s and I was wild and free, and I didn't have a family or kids, and I thought, if I don't do this now, when am I going to do it? Other things are going to come up in life. So I jumped on the opportunity and did the transatlantic crossing. I don't know, it's just been a part of my life.
It's amazing. So you speak and write about storytelling. What's that all about? Why do you think it's important for leaders to storytell?
Storytelling is about what to say and how to say it. And I'm sure you've been to a presentation, perhaps even at a big conference, where somebody gets up and does a data dump. Okay, well, I mean, look, I'm into technology. I get it. That's a storytelling medium. But after a while, it's like, okay, well, I'm checking my phone. We all do that. Or we get someone who gets up there and they talk about themselves and their achievements. So, for example, just because you've sailed across the Atlantic or climbed Mount Everest or run a marathon, that doesn't mean you're a great speaker and you know how to inspire people, even if you have a big story. So how do you make your story a metaphor for the audience's journey so that they feel you're talking about them instead of up there celebrating yourself? Narcissism is the only disease in the world where the sicker you are, the better you feel. And too many of those people end up on platforms failing to inspire people.
Okay, what makes someone an effective storyteller?
That number one thing is, I think that they are talking about the audience and not about themselves. Even if they're telling their own story, they are connecting with the audience. They're capturing the audience's attention. And then, of course, there are a lot of techniques on top of that. Finding the right words and then finding the right delivery style, the pauses, the dynamics, all of those things that make somebody a speaker instead of a lecturer.
Okay. Why are stories such important and powerful connection tools? How do they work?
That's a big question. But stories, I mean, if you watch from the time we're little kids, we'll watch our favorite movie over and over and over, even though we already know how the story ends. We know what happens to Cinderella. We know what happens to Aladdin. We know, I mean, whatever it is. But we get caught in that story. And while we're in that story, we're in the storyteller's world. If we're sitting in a movie theater, we forget that we are sitting with a bunch of other people who are slurping their Cokes and crinkling their candy wrappers, and we're in the movie. And we're in the story, and it's fascinating because if you can tell a story and you can bring somebody into your narrative, They're busy scanning for threats and opportunities inside your story. You've hijacked their brain, and you are now the guide. They're counting on you, the storyteller, to get them through that story. It puts you in a position of tremendous influence because you've got everybody's attention, just like a good movie does. And if you want to sell, what better way is there to do that than spout a bunch of facts and figures that don't inspire people, don't get people to pay attention?
Yeah, and I notice a lot of times people that are starting companies, they just only focus on the numbers, when pitching to investors or whatever. How do they get more into the storytelling side?
Well, one of the things is my golden rule of storytelling is that stories are always about people. If you're not talking about people, you're not telling stories. If you're not telling stories, you're not connecting. And if you're not connecting, you're not selling. And for those of you listening, now I know we've got an entrepreneurial audience, but some people are like, oh, selling, that's the S word, because we all hate to be sold to, right? But if you've ever asked for a job or a date, you're selling. If you've ever tried to put a kid to bed, you're selling. We're selling all the time. So that S word, the money that comes from selling is really a transaction of a connection process that's about people. So people get up on the platform or in front of a bunch of funding sources, and they talk about prices, processes, ingredients, and data. Well, that stuff's all on the website. It's all on the handout. That's all stuff that people are going to look at after they've determined that they like you and your story. You've heard this before. We buy with emotion and justify with logic. Put all the logic on the website. Put it on the handout. Build that relationship with your pitch, with your presentation.
Okay. How do you take an extraordinary experience like crossing an ocean or climbing a mountain or finishing a marathon and use your story to connect with people?
Well, for example, I can talk about crossing the ocean. When I do my keynote speech, I talk about crossing the Gulf Stream from the Bahamas to Miami, and on a very cold and stormy night. It was a scary time. Now, that's good to engage an audience for about 2 minutes, but at some point you have to say, have you ever felt like that? Because everybody listening to us has been out at sea in the rough seas, in the storms, not necessarily literally in a boat, but with their business. They're trying to grow a business. They're trying to get people to pay attention to them and their offering, to see the value they want to be listened to. And they're out there in those big waves, in those big winds, and they're trying to figure out how to get to that safe port of transformation. So whatever type of journey, climbing a mountain, crossing an ocean, running a marathon, hey, raising a dog, it doesn't matter. We all have stories. And anytime there's a journey, make that a metaphor for your listener's journey, and people will pay attention because you're talking about them and not about yourself.
Got you. What if you don't have a big, amazing story? Do you have to risk your life or survive cancer to find a story with sharing?
No, and it's too bad. I think we all battle the demons of self-doubt, and everyone says, oh, my story's just not big enough. Nothing amazing has ever happened to me. Great, I took a cruise once, but what kind of a story is that? But again, have you been in a relationship? Have you raised a child? Have you lost something that was precious to you? Have you had a divorce or a bad breakup? We all have stories. I coach people sometimes for the humorous speech contest that Toastmasters puts on every year. I always tell people, stop trying to be funny. What was the biggest disaster story you had? Tell us about that camping trip where you convinced their family to go or your girlfriend to go. They gave in, and of course it was cold, it was rainy, it was muddy. What was that animal you heard in the woods around your tent? And oh, the mosquitoes were terrible and the food was, and on and on and on. Those make great stories. Your worst client, your worst date. We all have stories. They don't have to be big, conquer the world stories. They just have to be entertaining and engaging and a metaphor for your listener's story. It's that simple. Size doesn't matter.
Got you. Does a story have to be 100% true? Where do you draw the line?
I think a story has to be 100% authentic. For example, I'll tell you that I sailed a wooden boat across the ocean, and that's true. The order of the events that happened on that journey, whether someone was with me at a certain time on the journey, doesn't matter, because I'm a journeyist, not a journalist. I'm trying to get my audience engaged with the message, and life doesn't always unfold in neat and tidy paragraphs. I wouldn't tell you that I'd run a marathon, because I guarantee you I couldn't do that. That's just not my superpower. I wouldn't tell you that I've climbed Mount Everest, because I haven't and I don't want to, though I admire some of the people who have. So I think if you tell the authentic story and you serve your audience, you don't have to let the truth stand in the way of a good story. I have a few stories I tell that are absolutely made up, but they're plausible. They fit into my overall scheme of sailing adventure stories. And if someone were to ask me, I'd say, yeah, I made that one up. But it's about the lesson in the story. It's about communicating with the audience and engaging them, not about documenting my life.
What about public speaking? Once you crafted a story, you need to be able to tell it in an engaging way.
Absolutely, because so many people work so hard to get the right words, and then they get on the stage, and I think most people have some fear of public speaking, and we do all sorts of stuff. We clasp our hands, we drop our voice. Watch someone who's been asked to give a wedding toast, and you see this all the time, and the microphone slowly drops down to their belly button. They don't even realize they're hiding in front of an audience. So getting over the fear, dealing with that fear, and then working on those pauses, working on the dynamics, working on speeding up and slowing down, all of these things that engage people's attention. Because if you do the same thing and you don't change, it's not even that you're monotone. If you're monodynamic and you're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're a radio speaker and you're this and you're that and it never changes, after a while it just, I mean, people can't focus on it. Watch a television commercial, the camera angle usually changes every second or two or three. Boom, boom, boom. Change keeps people engaged. So speaking skills are an essential business skill that is often overlooked.
Got you. I mean, so many executives are boring speakers. What's the impact of that?
The impact of that is tremendous negative impact on shareholder value. What if you are, let's go in history a little bit, and you're a CEO of American Airlines or US Air, and there's a big merger. And you got to tell the employees there are going to be a lot of redundant jobs. If you let people know about that merger, well, the way that you do that could mean tens or hundreds of millions in stock value, and in whether or not your employees put the resumes on the street. How are you going to craft that message in a way that puts everybody's fears to bed, that delivers a little reality where it needs to be made? But because if you just get up there and say, yes, we've planned a merger, we've been discussing it, we've just got it cleared with so and so with SEC, and this is moving, well, that's great, that's data. But you're looking at hundreds of thousands of employees and millions of customers. What's the impact on them? Because if you just give a data dump speech, people are going to think, oh, it's good to know, it affects me, but now what do I do? You can create a lot of tension instead of a lot of confidence. What does that translate to into the stock market? I don't know, but it's got to be significant.
How can those people improve? What skills do they need to learn?
I always encourage people to join a local Toastmasters chapter. There's over 270,000 people in Toastmasters. Most clubs meet once a week or twice a month. Most of them are online right now, but many of them are coming back to virtual. And it's just a friendly, supportive environment where people can learn to master those skills. Some corporations have Toastmasters clubs within them, and the smart employees go to them. It's the cheapest professional development in the world, and I think some of the most effective. But if you've got a big pitch to do, if you are a construction company pitching a new STEM building for a university, or you've got a big startup. I mean, why would you not work with a coach? Put your own, people, I watch them put their own terrible PowerPoint slides together, and then they're reading off the slides, and you watch the VC people, and they're just rolling. They can't wait for it to end. They've seen this presentation before. They've just sat through 5 look-alike presentations. There's so much money on the line. There's so much opportunity on the line. Why would you not work with a coach when the stakes are high? I don't get it. But people just think that, well, okay, I've got my company, I've got my logo, I've got a deck of slides, and then they just start spewing data, and they don't understand why people aren't interested. Sometimes their offering is amazing, but they're not building those relationships and telling those stories that win them the business.
Okay. Is the coaching, since you brought it up, is it mostly on the storytelling side, or is there like business coaching also?
Well, it all goes together, right? I mean, so look, there are a lot of 19-year-olds these days running around calling themselves life coaches, and maybe some of them are good, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a little older. I would like my life coach to have lived a little bit more life, but coaching is something that if you're trained to do, then you're not dispensing a lot of advice. You are asking wise questions and bringing the truth out of people. When it comes to presentation coaching, I guess you have to get into the business coaching because there's a lot of sales training that's involved with it. What pitch are we making? Because it might be that you're taking someone who's got a big data dump and you're turning that into a people-focused presentation. We work on the words, then we work on the actual delivery, and then we'll also work on the graphic design, working on the slides. I'll give you a simple example. Somebody might have 8 bullet points on their slide. They show them all at the same time. So while you're talking about bullet point number 2, the audience is silently reading 3, 4, 5, 6. They're reading your bullet points and you're interrupting them. So just by adding some builds, point 1, point 2, point 3, simple things like that, it all goes together. It's all storytelling, and I think everybody needs a different blend of business coaching. It could be personal because maybe they don't have the confidence to get up in front of a room full of people and ask for funding or share a new idea. And these are all things that can be overcome and worked on. It's different for everybody.
What are some of the common mistakes that speakers make on the storytelling side?
Number 1 is people get up and talk about themselves. At some point you got to make it about the audience, or people like, okay, well, great, that guy climbed Everest, but 4,000 people have climbed Mount Everest and I can get that on Netflix anytime I want it. And therefore, time to look at my email, maybe there's an opportunity there. Talking about yourself, you get a couple of minutes to do that, and you'd better start talking about the audience. The other one that I see frequently is the "if I can do it, you can do it" story. And we've all heard somebody say, I had a wonderful family and a loving wife and a great career, and I got into fill-in-the-blank drug, and the next thing I knew, I was wrapped in newspaper, shivering, sleeping behind a dumpster, and I lost everything. And then, I had my moment of inspiration, and I got the help I needed, and now I'm here speaking to you. And good for that person, because people fall into traps in life and they don't always get out of the addiction trap, or not everybody survives cancer, and it's mindset stuff. There's good messages there, but if I can do it, you can do it is dangerous, because you don't know if there's somebody sitting in your audience who can't get out of the trap, who's just a bigger loser than you were. Mm-hmm. And now you're saying, if I can do it, you can do it, but it's not necessarily true, and you might really be the final straw for somebody who's really in trouble. And I see people get up on the platform to speak, and they're doing their therapy on the platform. And if you've survived cancer, God bless you. And if it was your mindset that did it, God bless you. I hope you find ways to share that inspiration, but you've got to find a vehicle for it other than "if I can do it, you can do it," because you're going to leave somebody behind and do damage that you don't intend.
And final straw, you could actually be hurting the person that's listening.
Exactly, because they don't have the strength of character. You can do it. That's great. You found your strength. They're not ready to do it yet. They can't find their strength, and they're not going to get it because you ran your pie hole for 45 minutes at a conference. It's a bigger problem than that.
I guess something I want to ask is, do public speaking skills matter now, since we're all working from home and conferences are getting canceled?
I think, well, first of all, in-person meetings are coming back, and as a matter of fact, Miami is right now the #1 tourist destination in the United States. And I know we unveiled our $600 million convention center right as COVID hit, and that all got locked down, but that place is getting booked. And we're not just a tourist destination, we're a meetings destination. So for live meetings, yes, but then we've got a whole new batch of skills to learn because we have to look good on Zoom. And the idea that we're just going to throw up a virtual background and pretend that our hair's not disappearing every 5 minutes or you can't see our hands. I mean, we have to look professional on camera. We have to have good audio gear. We need a better camera usually than the one that comes with our laptop. We need to learn a whole new set of skills. And yet most people will pay more for a sport jacket or a pair of high heels than they will for the gear that they're using to present their message to the world. So I think presentation skills matter now more than ever.
Wow, I never knew that. What's that conference center that you're talking about in Miami?
Miami Beach Convention Center.
It's amazing. Never knew
It's
that.
absolutely massive, and I understand they're building a big hotel in the middle of it, and that's going to be, I mean, it's huge, and they've invested a lot of money in making Miami Beach a primo meeting destination. Now, we've always had the Miami Beach Convention Center, but they completely redid it. I think it was $600 million. And then COVID hit and just locked. I mean, it was like almost the day they launched it, and then boom, COVID. But it's back, and Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau is doing a great job promoting not just the convention center, but South Florida as a destination. It's working. Cruise industry's coming back. A lot of in-person opportunities coming back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what are a few tips you have for our viewers, listeners, that they can use to look more professional on screen?
One is good lighting. Don't speak with a window, for example, directly behind you because you're going to be backlit. You're going to look like a silhouette. Update your camera and your microphone because the ones built into your laptop, they're fine for conversations. They're not up to the task of giving presentation. Get a better camera, get a better microphone, starting with that. And then, of course, learn some presentation skills. I don't care how shy you are. Look, I lived on a sailboat for 15 years. I invented introvert, and I've learned to come off as confident on stage. I've learned to coach people. I fought my battles to do that. Well, good for me, right? But everybody, I mean, I see people come in with, like, the people who look at their shoes and give you the limp noodle handshake because they're so pathologically shy. I've seen these people 3 months later up in front of a room waving their hands and emoting and being themselves. We can all learn to do this, and it makes a difference, especially if you've got something to say. Whether you've got something to say to your life partner, whether you've got something to say to your employer or something to say to the world, get those communication skills, and it's liberating.
Cool. Many of us are at home right now. What do you think the new normal will look like for business? Are there still opportunities?
I don't know that there's ever been a normal for business in recent times because, I mean, normal is a myth. I mean, people in college right now in technology are training for jobs that don't exist yet. And I think that's been true for 15 or 20 years or more. Our world is changing so fast. It's changing politically, it's changing economically, it's changing environmentally. New normal is whatever is happening tomorrow. And we all feel that normal is some sort of a comfort zone that, oh, we're going to get back to normal. There's no back to normal. We're moving into the future faster and faster and faster. So I think that we're going to be even more connected. We've all in the past couple of years, I mean, was a Skype user for many years. Hey, video conferencing, what's that? Now everybody's on Zoom, everybody's video conferencing all the time. And what's the next medium where, we've got chat going all the time, email's almost old-fashioned, social media is evolving. I mean, Facebook is, people joke it's for people my age, right? Now the younger people are all on Instagram and TikTok, and the channels keep changing. It's just, I think, embrace change, adapt to change, and find a way to be yourself at the same time. That's the new normal, is you in a changing world.
Okay. So your books are available on Amazon. How can people get a hold of you?
So my books are on Amazon. I've written a number of them, some of them on storytelling, some of them on writing. I've got a sailing memoir and a few novels and other oddball things up there. And the best way to get a hold of me is through my website at storysailing.com. STORY sailing.com. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all of the usual places, but not on TikTok.
It's okay. What are you going to keep doing to continue offering value to your customers?
I'm going to continue speaking, giving workshops, corporate training, working with executives. And I find that I love the coaching because, look, it's fun to get up on the stage and the lights or whatever. It's an ego trip when you get to speak and people are paying attention. It's fun. But I'll tell you, I recently coached Errol Leandra, who went to the World Championship of Public Speaking and finished in the top 8 of 30,000 people. And I got to tell you, I got just as much of a charge personally out of watching him grow and find that success as a speaker, as possibly even more as I do myself. So I'm going to help big people with big ideas, get them out into the world, and continue speaking on storytelling so that I find more people who want to do that.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to mention?
No, not really. Storytelling's my playground, and I encourage people to join Toastmasters. Reach out to me if you want coaching or want workshops for your sales team and things like that. And then, as my friend Dr. Margarita Gurry always says, when all else fails, pretend to be yourself.
Awesome. There you have it, storysailing.com. Thank you so much for coming down to our office and having this meeting.
Davron, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. Had an enjoyable session.